Greetings. I'm going to be telling another story today, but of course it's got a point. This is mainly aimed at younger people, maybe 16, 17 years old, who are looking to go to college. But there's a lesson here for everybody, at least in my opinion there is. But we're going to go back to high school. So I moved to New York in 1975 to start my junior year. We had all kind of weird stuff going on because I'd been to other states with other schooling. And by my senior year of high school, I really only had to take one class. And really, I needed one class that was specific to New York State at the time, and that was chemistry. I ended up taking a couple of courses that were college level so I could get some college level credits. And of course, you have to take gym because back then everyone took gym. I say that now because I know a lot of schools don't have gym anymore, which is really a shame. But anyway, so I had to take chemistry. And my teacher was this little squirrely guy. He was kind of weird. He was a little bit of a pervert because there were 4 girls in the class, and he made sure that all 4 of their desks were up against his desk. And they were all attractive. They just were. So no complaints from him, no complaints from them, and the rest of us, we didn't complain either. He was just, you know, that was his thing. He would walk around the class with the yardstick, and every once in a while he would hit something, you get explosions, and that seemed to make everyone kind of laugh and feel good. He was a weird guy. But he had one thing that was on his wall that I found intriguing, and I never forgot it. Because what it said was, you don't go to college to learn anything except how to think. And I thought that was very deep and very prophetic. I was a strange kid because I was a military kid, not going to a military school or a school that was used to military kids my last couple of years. We had no idea that you had to apply for college. No one in the family. I was the first one who went from high school to college on my dad's side of the family. So none of us knew you had to apply for college. But had I applied for college, had I known early on, the question always was, what am I going to apply for? My dad thought I should have applied for business. My mother thought I should have applied for computer sciences of all things. And I absolutely had no idea. We thought you just, showed up one day, you paid money, and you picked some classes and you went. In essence, by the time I knew that I had to apply for college, I applied for these different colleges, got turned down from all of them except SUNY Oswego, State University College of New York in Oswego. And they accepted me for communications because you had to pick something. So I couldn't get into anything else but communications. And my thought, like a lot of guys at the time, was I will be a TV sports announcer. It just seemed like the coolest job at the time. All you got to do is go on there and talk a couple of minutes about sports. And I loved sports back then. Of course, it takes a lot more than that, but that's what we thought it was. So my first year, I had to pick some electives, and I picked a bunch of electives, but I also picked a couple of classes that were in my major. My first semester was a disaster. It just was. I didn't sleep much. I didn't really get along with a whole lot of people. I made some friends, but I just had to get acclimated. I was an only child. It took me a while to get used to all these different things. Second semester was a little better, but it wasn't fantastic. However, I learned a very interesting thing. So once again, I was taking a bunch of different classes, but I was taking a couple of communication classes, and I was bombing one of them horribly. The guy was a great talker. He loved to tell great tales about his son and opera and his travels, but he didn't really talk much about what was in the book. So I just couldn't understand anything he was doing. I'm getting a D in this class. I'm taking another communications class that I thought was dull. Everything was dull. I was also taking piano because I think I mentioned before that I, played piano for some time. And I just was kind of floundering. And this one day, it was just some horrible thing had happened. And I went to the building where I took piano lessons, and I took all this sheet music with me, and I was just playing. And I heard this sound. It's like, what is that? And so I decided, to track this down. And it turned out that it was a school concert, which I had never been to. I'd never been to a concert in high school. I didn't even know we had them. We never had them up in Maine. But they had it at Liverpool. I just didn't know. So it was a school concert. And they were good. I mean, they were just absolutely great. And I sat in the back row, and I was stunned. And I said, on that day, I am going to become a music major. And I want to be a composer. And that's what I did. I became a music major. So for the next, basically, well, 2 years, I took mainly music classes, almost nothing else. And I enjoyed it. Now, my parents were upset that I decided to go into music. They knew I had some talent, but they didn't see me as having great talent. They couldn't see, where is this kid going to go? He doesn't want to be a performer. He wants to be a songwriter. And at home, they said, well, you don't play enough at home for us to figure out why you're a music major. I didn't play all that much at home because they were there. You know, when my parents weren't there, I played all the time. When I was at college, if I had break time, I would either be playing in the music building, or every one of the dorms had a piano room or had a piano somewhere. And so I used to play a lot, because something my dad had told me before I went to college was, you know, you should play piano more because girls really love piano players. And that turned out to be true. Anyway, we get to the point where I change advisors, because everyone has an advisor in college, just like you have some kind of advisor in high school. And my new advisor looks at everything. She says, you don't have any electives. I said, what do you mean? I took electives my freshman year. She says, no. But you've only taken music. For the last year, the only music class you can take is piano. You have to take everything else, otherwise you can't graduate on time. It's like, what? So now I'm kind of stuck. I have to take other courses. And I basically load up on history courses, and I took a couple of English classes. I took one each semester. And I almost got a minor in history. Actually, a second major in history, but I was actually minoring at the time in African American studies. So I had taken a couple of things here and there. I loved this guy I had as an African American studies teacher. So I had to take all these other courses, and I did really well in these other courses. I did pretty well in music also, although I did have a music teacher who used to say during composition, well, Mozart wouldn't have written it that way, or Bach wouldn't have written it that way. And I'm thinking, why am I trying to write something like Bach and Mozart? This is the 1970s. This is not back in their day. I gotta be. What are you gonna do? Anyhow, I go through all these courses. I make the dean's list. I'm doing really well. I get out of college. Now what am I going to do? It takes a long time to be known as a composer in music, and you have to meet the right people, which I never met. I met some local musicians here and there. I had some songs that I got to sing at some weddings, but in general, it just wasn't going to happen. And I didn't learn anything that was going to make me job worthy. I mean, let's face the fact here. All the music classes, the best I could have done was gone back, got a master's degree or a doctorate in music, and became a professor. Didn't want to do that. The same thing with history. I was always good at history. I always loved reading history, but I didn't want to be a teacher, especially in New York State. So what am I going to do? And I basically ended up falling back on what was on that teacher's board way back when. I learned how to think. So when the first real opportunity for something that I never thought was going to come, and you know, I never projected it, came with the opportunity to work in healthcare, my initial thought was, well, geez, I'm going to be in a hospital. I'd never been in a hospital except the day I was born, and I was born on a military base. You don't call them hospitals on military base, so wherever, you know. But I'm now in a hospital, and after a couple of weeks, I'm like, goodness, I'm never going to figure this out. This is just, what am I doing here in this hospital? But then it kicked in, because I had been to college. Not saying that it made me super, super smart, but it said, you know what? You can learn this. Look at all these people around you. If they were able to learn this, you're at least as smart as them. You're probably smarter, but you're at least as smart as them. If they can learn it, you can learn it. And you know what? That's what happened. And so now I have basically conquered a career that I thought, you know what, I'm only going to be here a couple of years. I'm going to keep writing my songs and keep sending them out. And a publisher is going to call me and say, come write for us. We love your stuff. That call never happened. I did finish in the top 600 in a song contest once. I used to have a certificate for that, but that bad boy's long gone. However, I did learn how to think. And really, I think that was what happened to college and happens to a lot of people. Go to college taking majors that probably there's nothing they can actually do within that major other than be a teacher or get a doctorate and go do research. And so when you really think about it, a Bachelor of Arts degree is a learn how to think degree. And there's nothing wrong with that because all of us don't graduate already knowing what we want to do. Sure, you have some people who have a track. For instance, if you know you want to be a doctor, then you're going to take a lot of those courses. If you don't want to be a scientist, researcher, you want to work for NASA, you have those. If you want to be a teacher, you have that. You know, you have some of those things. But for the rest of us, we don't. I mean, I went to school with people who were language majors. I mean, Spanish and German, they went and did their, I don't know if you call them sabbaticals or whatever, but they went, they came back, and none of them ended up working in those fields. It just didn't work out that way. I knew people who went for wood crafting. I mean, we actually had that. I can't remember what it was called. It wasn't called wood crafting, but that's what they did. They built stuff. Who, once they graduated college, never did any of that as a profession. They did it on the side, but they never did it as a profession. So that's really, you know, the kind of thing I want to say out there. If you really aren't sure what it is, pick something that you like, that you think you can be good at. Education is still a good thing in college. Try to pick a college that's not going to bankrupt you. But go to college. Learn how to think. Learn how to become flexible. Figure things out so that when you finally decide on something, you can say, you know what, I'm going to give my all to this. I'm going to put my head into this, and I'm going to expand. Or you might come up with something later on in life. There are a lot of people who hit age 39 or 40 and suddenly say, you know what, I'm going to go do this. And they have the capacity to think about how to do this thing, learn how to both do this thing and market themselves at it, and end up becoming very successful. So the closing words I want to say is learning how to think is as important as what you learn otherwise. I believe that. I've kind of lived that. You don't go to college to learn how to do medical billing. There's just no course for it. You don't go to college to learn how to be a revenue cycle consultant, like I told you a couple of videos ago. There is no college course for that. I also teach leadership. I've written 2 books on the topic of leadership. There's no college course that you go to, and I mean get a degree in leadership. It just doesn't exist. There's a degree in management, but management is not leadership in the collegiate sense. That's my thing today. And like I said, even though I'm gearing this more towards younger people who might be going to college, this is for all the rest of you as well. If you think you're in a job and it's dead end and it's something you really don't want to do, go learn something. Go take a course. Take a course on the side. Because the thing is that even if it's not within something that you think you want a career in, just the process of learning, the process of thinking, having to think, will help you figure things out. At least that's my thought on it. Let me know your thoughts. My name is Mitch Mitchell. Hope you have a wonderful day.